In business, we learn to pay attention to the small things. A loose bolt, a strange sound in the engine, a number that does not add up on a balance sheet. These tiny details can mean the difference between profit and bankruptcy, between success and catastrophic failure. But at home, in our personal lives, we become blind. We trust. We assume. We ignore the warning signs because we want to believe that the people we love would never betray us. I was blind for 3 years. My name is Mark. I am 44 years old. I own a mid-sized construction equipment rental business in the outskirts of Dallas. Nothing fancy, nothing glamorous. We rent backhoes, excavators, generators to contractors across North Texas. It is steady work, good money, the kind of business that lets you afford a comfortable house in the suburbs, 2 cars, nice vacations, and a life that looks perfect from the outside. I married Lisa 8 years ago. She was beautiful, smart, ambitious. She worked as an HR consultant for the company, handling employee benefits, compliance, paperwork, that sort of thing. We had what I thought was a solid marriage. We had a son, Leo, who just turned 3. He has her eyes and her smile. Or at least, that is what I used to tell people. Everything changed 1 week ago. Leo had been looking pale, tired. Lisa took him to the pediatrician for a routine checkup. The doctor ran some blood work, concerned about possible anemia. Nothing serious, just precautionary. I was at the office when Lisa called to say the results came back mostly normal, just a little low on iron. The doctor prescribed a supplement. End of story. Except it was not the end. 2 days later, I was picking up a prescription from the pharmacy. The pharmacist asked me to confirm Leo's blood type for their records. Type B, she said, reading from the medical chart Lisa had faxed over. Type B. I stood there at the counter, frozen. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Someone behind me coughed impatiently. The pharmacist asked if something was wrong. I have type A blood. My mother made sure I knew this growing up. She was a nurse, paranoid about medical emergencies, and she drilled it into my head. Lisa has type O. I know this because she donated blood at a company drive 2 years ago and would not shut up about how O negative is a universal donor, how she was saving lives. I took biology in high school. I remember enough to know that 2 parents with type A and type O blood cannot produce a child with type B. It is genetically impossible. My hands were shaking when I got back to the truck. I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at the prescription bottle. There had to be a mistake. Labs make errors all the time. Maybe they mixed up the samples. Maybe the pharmacist read it wrong. But I knew, deep in my gut, in that place where men know things they do not want to admit, I knew. I did not confront Lisa. I did not scream or throw things or demand answers. That is what stupid people do. People who let emotion override strategy. Instead, I went home and waited until Leo fell asleep. I took the sippy cup he had been drinking from and sealed it in a Ziploc bag, DNA from saliva. Then I drove to a private lab across town, one that specializes in paternity testing. I brought my own cheek swab and Leo's cup. I paid extra for the rush service. 48 hours. They would courier the results directly to my phone. Then I went home and kissed my wife. I played with Leo. I acted like everything was normal. Those 48 hours were the longest of my life. I threw myself into work to keep from losing my mind. We were in the middle of quarterly tax preparation, which meant I was buried in financial statements, receipts, expense reports. I have always handled the books myself. I do not trust accountants to care about my money as much as I do. It was during this deep dive into our financials that I noticed something strange. Lisa had a corporate credit card. She used it for legitimate business expenses, things like conference fees, client gifts, office supplies. Standard stuff. But as I was reconciling her charges for the IRS, my brain, sharpened by suspicion and paranoia, started seeing patterns that did not make sense. A charge for $3,500 to the Four Seasons in Austin. The description said, Team Building Seminar. I checked the date. We had no seminar that weekend. I called the hotel. They confirmed a 2-night stay under Lisa's name. 1 room, 1 guest. a charge for $4,200 to a luxury watch retailer. The receipt said VIP client gift, tag Hoyer Awk Racer. I know every single one of our VIP clients. I personally deliver Christmas gifts to them every year. None of them ever received a $4,200 watch. I went back further. 3 years of statements. The pattern was everywhere once you knew to look for it. Spa weekends, designer handbags, jewelry, high-end restaurants, weekend trips to ski resorts and beach towns, all of it coded as business expenses, employee morale, client entertainment, marketing initiatives, all of it lies. I built a spreadsheet. I categorized every suspicious charge. I cross-referenced dates with our actual business calendar. By the time I was done, the number was staggering. $148,000. She had stolen $148,000 from our company over 3 years, and she had been so confident, so brazen about it, that she barely even tried to hide it. She just assumed I would never look. She assumed I was too busy, too trusting, too stupid to notice. The notification came through at 11:30 at night. I was in my home office. Lisa was asleep upstairs, and my phone buzzed with an encrypted message from the lab. I did not want to open it. As long as I did not open it, there was still a chance I was wrong. A chance this was all some terrible misunderstanding. A chance my son was still my son. I opened it. Probability of paternity, 0%. The words blurred. The room tilted. I set the phone down very carefully on the desk, as if it might explode. Then I opened my laptop and checked Lisa's location on the Find My app. She was not at home. Even though her car was in the driveway, the GPS put her at Elite Performance Gym, a high-end fitness club downtown. The same gym where Kyle worked as a personal trainer. Kyle, 28 years old, six-pack abs, charming smile. Lisa had been training with him for the past 2 years. She always came home glowing, talking about how he was helping her get in the best shape of her life. I thought it was cute. I thought it was healthy for her to have a hobby. I thought a lot of stupid things. I poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey, Macallan 18, the bottle Lisa gave me for our anniversary. I sat in the dark, and I made myself breathe, in through the nose, out through the mouth, like they teach you in anger management videos I had never needed to watch until now. My first instinct was to burn everything down, storm into that gym, drag Kyle into the parking lot, drive to a lawyer first thing in the morning, and file for divorce with maximum prejudice. But that is what stupid people do. That is what emotional people do. That is what people do when they want revenge more than they want victory. I am a businessman. I know how to run the numbers. I know how to assess risk and reward. I know that the person who acts first in anger usually loses, and the person who acts second with a plan usually wins. Lisa had stolen my son. She had stolen my money. She had made a fool of me for 3 years, and she thought she had gotten away with it. She was wrong. It was time to show her what a real audit looks like. I spent the next 2 days preparing. I called my corporate attorney, a sharp woman named Rebecca, who had helped me structure the business years ago. I told her everything. She listened without interruption, and when I was done, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Do you want to destroy her, or do you want to win?" I said I wanted to win. She said, "Then we need to be very careful. Texas is a community property state. Anything you earn during the marriage is half hers by default. That includes the business. If you file for divorce right now, she gets half of everything, including the company you built before you even met her. And because Leo is legally yours until a court says otherwise, you'll be paying child support for a kid who is not even your son." My jaw clenched. So what do I do? Rebecca's voice was calm, clinical. We need leverage. We need something that shifts the balance of power before you file. Something that makes her desperate enough to accept an unfavorable settlement. I told her about the $148,000. I told her about the falsified expense reports, the fake business charges, the systematic theft. There was another pause. Then Rebecca said, "That is your leverage, but we have to be smart about how we use it." She explained the plan. It was risky. It required perfect execution. and it required me to lie to my wife's face with the kind of conviction that would make a con artist jealous. I told her I could do it. By Friday afternoon, everything was in place. I had printed out every fraudulent expense report, highlighted in red. I had drafted a legal document that Rebecca called an affidavit of debt acknowledgement. I had scheduled a mobile notary to come to the house at 7 p.m. Now I just had to wait for Lisa to come home. She walked through the door at 6:15, glowing and energetic. She had that post-workout flush, hair still damp from the gym shower. She kissed me on the cheek and asked what I wanted for dinner. I told her we needed to talk. My voice was flat, serious. She picked up on it immediately. Her smile faded. I gestured to the kitchen table. The lights were dim. Stacks of paper covered the surface, each one marked with red sticky notes. I had spent an hour staging it to look as intimidating as possible. Lisa sat down slowly. What is going on? I sat across from her. I made my hand shake just slightly as I reached for one of the documents. I let my voice crack. We have a problem. A serious problem. Her face went pale. What kind of problem? I slid an official-looking envelope across the table. It was not from the IRS. It was from Office Depot, but it had the IRS logo printed on the front, and, in her panic, she would not notice the difference. This came 2 days ago. I said, the IRS is auditing us. 3 years of business expenses. Their system flagged multiple charges on your corporate card as suspicious. Lisa's hand went to her throat. Suspicious? What do you mean suspicious? I pulled out the spreadsheet I had made. Rows and rows of highlighted charges. These, all of these, the Four Seasons trip, the watch, the spa weekends. The IRS software flagged them as personal expenses fraudulently claimed as business deductions. They are calling it tax fraud. She stared at the papers. Her mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. I pressed the attack. Lisa, this is not a joke. This is federal. This is the kind of thing that sends people to prison. They are alleging that you embezzled company funds and then claimed false deductions to cover it up. That is 2 crimes. Tax fraud and embezzlement. Her voice was barely a whisper. But I did not. I mean, those were for what? I snapped. For business? Show me the receipts. Show me the client meetings. Show me the team-building events. Show me anything that proves these were legitimate business expenses. She could not, because they were not. I watched her crumble. This woman who had lied to my face for 3 years, who had let me raise another man's child, who had stolen from me without a shred of guilt, she was falling apart because she thought the government was coming for her. Americans fear the IRS more than they fear God. You can negotiate with God. You can ask for forgiveness. The IRS does not forgive. The IRS does not negotiate. The IRS takes everything and leaves you in a cell. Lisa started crying. What do we do? What can we do? I let her panic for a full minute. Let her imagine prison cells and orange jumpsuits and her life destroyed. Then I leaned forward, my voice soft, almost gentle. There might be a way out, I said, but it has to happen tonight. She looked up at me with desperate, red-rimmed eyes. Anything, whatever it takes. I pulled out the document Rebecca had prepared. The only way to avoid criminal charges is to reclassify these expenses right now, before the audit goes deeper. We tell the IRS that these were not fraudulent business expenses. We tell them these were short-term employee loans, loans that you took from the company for personal reasons, with the intention of paying them back. Lisa's brow furrowed. But then I would owe the company money. Yes, I said, but it would be a civil debt, not a criminal case. You would owe the business $148,000. But the IRS would not send you to prison. Do you understand the difference? She nodded slowly. She was starting to see the lifeline I was throwing her. I kept my voice calm, reasonable. The company is owned by me. You would technically owe me the money, but it is just accounting. It is moving money from the left pocket to the right pocket. The important thing is that this makes the IRS go away. She hesitated. But what if I can't pay it back? We will work it out later, I said, waving my hand dismissively. Right now, We just need to stop the criminal investigation. The affidavit has to be signed and notarized tonight. I have already called a mobile notary. She will be here in 15 minutes. Lisa's eyes widened. Tonight? Why tonight? Because the IRS deadline for voluntary reclassification is Monday. If we do not file this by end of business Monday, it goes to the criminal division. I am not letting you go to prison over this. Lisa, but you have to trust me. You have to sign. The doorbell rang at exactly 7 p.m. I opened it to reveal a middle-aged woman in business attire, carrying a leather portfolio. She introduced herself as Janet, Mobile Notary Services. She was polite, professional, completely oblivious to the trap she was helping me set. Lisa sat at the table, pale and shaking. Janet laid out the document, explaining in a calm, official voice that this was an affidavit acknowledging receipt of corporate funds for personal use, with a promise to repay. She asked Lisa to read it carefully before signing. Lisa barely read it. Her hands trembled as she picked up the pen. The document was beautifully crafted. It stated in clear, unambiguous language that Lisa acknowledged withdrawing $148,000 from company accounts for personal expenses unrelated to business purposes. It listed every charge, every date, every dollar amount. It stated that she understood this constituted a debt owed to the company, payable on demand. She signed. Janet notarized it with her official seal. She made copies. She handed one to Lisa, one to me, and kept one for her records. Then she left, wishing us a good evening. The door closed behind her. Lisa collapsed into a chair, her face in her hands. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving us. I do not know what I would have done if—" I stood behind her, looking down at the signed affidavit in my hands. The notary seal was still warm. "It is okay," I said softly. "Everything is going to be okay." She had no idea how right I was. I let her believe the lie for 2 weeks. During that time, I filed the notarized affidavit with our corporate records. I sent a copy to Rebecca. I made sure it was officially documented in multiple places, legally unassailable. I also began the process of filing for paternity disestablishment in family court, attaching the DNA test results and evidence of Lisa's affair. Lisa, meanwhile, seemed lighter, happier. She thought the nightmare was over. She thought she had gotten away with it. She even suggested we take a weekend trip to Fredericksburg, just the two of us, to reconnect. I told her I would think about it. On a Tuesday morning, I woke up early. Lisa was packing a small suitcase in the bedroom. She said she was going to visit her mother in Houston for a few days. Just a quick trip. I knew she was lying. Her mother lived in San Antonio, and I had checked Kyle's social media. He had posted about taking a long weekend at a beach house in Galveston. I waited until she was standing in the hallway, suitcase in hand, before I blocked her path. "We need to talk," I said. She looked annoyed. "Mark, I'm going to miss my flight. Can it wait?" "No," I said. "It cannot." I walked to the kitchen table and dropped a manila folder in front of her. The DNA test results were on top. Lisa stared at the paper. Her face went white, then red, then white again. There was no IRS audit, I said quietly, but there was an investigation. My investigation. She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. I kept my voice calm, almost conversational. "Leo is not my son. He is Kyle's son. I have known for 2 weeks. I had the DNA test done the day after his doctor's appointment. Type B blood, Lisa. You should have paid more attention in science class." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I stepped closer. "I know everything. The hotel rooms, the weekends away, the lies, all of it." For a moment, she just stared at me. Then something shifted in her expression. The fear evaporated, replaced by cold fury. She straightened up, her voice dripping with venom. "You bastard. You manipulative bastard." I said nothing. I just watched. She started shouting. "You think you are so smart? You think you have won? I am going to destroy you, Mark. I am going to take you for everything you have. Half the house, half the business, alimony, Child support. You are listed as Leo's father on the birth certificate, which means you are legally responsible. I will bleed you dry for the next 18 years. She was screaming now, pacing like a caged animal. You will be paying for my life, for Kyle's life, for our son's life, and there is nothing you can do about it. Your money, your business, everything you built, it is mine now. That is what you get for being stupid enough to marry me. I waited until she was done. Then I picked up the second document from the folder, the notarized affidavit she had signed 2 weeks ago. Her eyes locked onto it. I spoke slowly, making sure every word landed. You are right about one thing. In a divorce, you will be entitled to half of everything I earned during the marriage. That is Texas law. And yes, I am currently listed as Leo's father, which would make me liable for child support. I paused. But here's what you are forgetting. Leo is only 3 years old. Under Texas Family Code, I can file for paternity disestablishment within 4 years of discovering fraud. I have already filed. I have DNA evidence. I have proof of your affair. A judge will remove me as Leo's legal father, and Kyle will be on the hook for child support instead. Her face went slack. I held up the affidavit. And this, you signed a legal document admitting that you stole $148,000 from the company. This is not community property. Lisa, this is embezzlement. This is criminal. She stumbled backward, grabbing the counter for support. I kept talking. Community property laws only apply to legitimate shared assets and debts. Debts incurred through illegal activity are the sole responsibility of the person who committed the crime, which means if we go to court and divide everything, this debt is yours alone. $148,000. Yours. She shook her head. You tricked me. That will not hold up in court. Yes, it will, I said. You signed it in front of a notary. You were not coerced. You were not under duress. I did not threaten you. I offered you a solution to a problem, and you voluntarily agreed. That is what your signature says. That is what the notary will testify if asked. I stepped closer, my voice dropping to a near whisper. So here is your choice, Lisa. Option 1, we go to court. I filed charges for embezzlement. That is a Class B felony in Texas, up to 10 years in prison. Even if you avoid jail time, you will have a criminal record. You will lose any chance at a decent settlement. And when Child Protective Services gets involved, which they will when your criminal case makes the news, they will question your fitness as a parent. Kyle will not want to deal with that mess, and you will lose everything, including Leo. She was trembling now. Option 2, I continued. We settle this right here, right now. You walk away. No criminal charges. No court battle. No jail time. But you leave with nothing. I laid the settlement agreement on the table. Rebecca had drafted it 3 days ago, anticipating this exact conversation. Lisa sank into a chair. She looked smaller now, defeated. The confident woman who had walked in 20 minutes ago had evaporated. I laid out the math for her. Cold, precise, brutal. Your share of the equity in this house is approximately $150,000. The business is more complicated. I started it 2 years before we met, which makes it separate property under Texas law. You might argue for a portion of the appreciation during the marriage. If you get a good lawyer, maybe you walk away with another $50,000 from that. So we are looking at $200,000 in marital assets that would be yours. I paused, letting that number sink in. But here is where it gets interesting. You owe the company $148,000. That is what you admitted to stealing in the affidavit. But in Texas, civil theft allows for something called treble damages. That means a victim can sue for 3 times the amount stolen. So your $148,000 theft becomes a $444,000 judgment. Her face went gray. Plus, I continued, there are the legal fees I've already incurred investigating this. Another $30,000, plus the penalties and interest we will likely face from the IRS when they find out about the fraudulent deductions you claimed. Because yes, Lisa, I will have to report this to them now. That is another $50,000, conservatively. I tapped the calculator on my phone. So your total potential liability is $524,000. Your assets are $200,000. You are $324,000 in the hole. You are bankrupt. Worse than bankrupt. She was shaking now. So here's what I am offering you. You sign this settlement. You waive all claims to the house and the business. In exchange, I waive my right to pursue treble damages. I forgive the debt. You walk away at zero. No money but no debt. No criminal charges. No civil judgment following you for the rest of your life. I slid the paper closer. Or you can roll the dice in court. Maybe you get a sympathetic judge. Maybe you only end up owing $500,000 instead of the full amount. Maybe you could declare bankruptcy and destroy your credit for 7 years. Maybe Kyle will stick around to help you through it. I leaned back, but I would not bet on maybe. I would take the certainty of zero over the risk of $500,000. She stared at the document for a long time. I could see the calculations running behind her eyes. She was trying to find a way out, some loophole, some angle. There was none. Finally, she picked up the pen. She signed. I made a copy. I handed her one. I kept the original. She stood up, grabbed her suitcase, and walked to the door. She turned back once, her face twisted with hatred. I hope you die alone, Mark. I smiled. I would rather die alone than live as a fool. The door slammed behind her. The legal proceedings moved quickly after that. I filed for divorce based on adultery, attaching evidence of the affair. I filed for paternity disestablishment, attaching the DNA results. The court ordered Kyle to submit to a DNA test, which confirmed he was Leo's biological father. He was placed on the birth certificate. He was assigned child support payments of $1,500 a month. Lisa tried to fight the settlement. She hired a lawyer, claimed she had been coerced, claimed the affidavit was fraudulent. But the notary testified. The documents were ironclad. The judge upheld everything. Lisa and Kyle's relationship imploded within a month. Turns out, romance dies quickly when faced with the reality of child support payments, diapers, and a partner who is broke and bitter. Kyle kicked her out. Last I heard, she was living with a roommate in a cheap apartment near the airport, working retail to make ends meet. I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt like I had won. Mostly, I just felt tired. One evening, a few months after everything was finalized, I was sitting on the back porch of my house, the house that was now entirely mine. The sky was orange and purple, the Texas heat finally breaking as the sun dipped below the horizon. I thought about Leo. I had set up a small education trust for him, $50,000, accessible when he turns 21. He is an innocent kid. He did not ask to be born into this disaster. He deserves a chance at a decent future, even if I can never be his father. Rebecca thought I was crazy for doing it. She said I owed him nothing. Maybe she was right, but I needed to do it anyway. Not for Lisa, not for Kyle, for me, so I could look in the mirror and know that I had not let bitterness turn me into something I did not recognize. There's a concept in investing called a stop loss. It is an automatic sell order that triggers when an asset drops to a certain price. The idea is to limit your losses before they spiral out of control. You take the hit, you move on, and you protect what you have left. That is what I did with my marriage. I lost a wife I thought I knew. I lost the illusion of a family. I lost 3 years of my life to a lie. That hurts. It will always hurt. But I kept my business. I kept my house. I kept my dignity. I did not let her take everything just because I was too proud to cut my losses. Some people would say I was cold, that I was calculating, that I should have forgiven her, worked it out, tried to save the marriage. Those people have never been betrayed by someone they trusted completely. They have never had to choose between their pride and their survival. I chose survival. And you know what? I am okay with that. Freedom costs. Sometimes it costs money. Sometimes it costs relationships. Sometimes it costs the future you thought you were building. But slavery costs more. I would rather be alone and free than together and destroyed. And if that makes me a bastard, so be it. I can live with that.